Hello, welcome back to my channel. So I know that this is kind of weird and you guys are like, whoa, we're up close and personal. Yes we are. So today, obviously by the title of this video, it doesn't really need an introduction, so this is going to be short and sweet. This is the look I created to show you guys how to cut your crease. So if you guys are genuinely interested in the tools that I use and the products and how I do it, then just keep watching this video. I really hope that I can help you guys learn how to really get that good sharp cut crease look. And if you are interested in that, just keep watching. Without saying much else, because there's not a whole lot to say, let's just jump straight into this video. Alright guys, so we're gonna cut our crease today. I'm gonna try to teach you to the best of my knowledge how to cut your crease. I know you're probably thinking, Lacey, we're just staring at your half done eyeball, and yes you are. So I just wanted to get to the point with this. This is not about blending eyeshadow or any of that. It is about how to cut your crease. And I will try to show you how to apply eyeshadow on top of it without it looking very unblended. So as you can see, I already have my crease done. I will clean this up as I go. Alright, so let's talk about brushes really quick before we get into it. If you get subscription boxes, you may have seen this brush. This is by Eisling Organics, and this is the 389 brush. It's double-sided. You have a blending side and you have a flat side. So I highly suggest this brush because if you look at the shape of this brush, it is round, yes, but also it is kind of square round. Does that make sense? So these are just a good example of brushes that do and don't work for me. This is the brush I was talking about, and if you look at it, it is kind of squared at the top. This one next to it, which is a Morphe 124 brush, this brush it is like ideal shape, but the problem with it is not get thin enough. Like you can see that kind of has some density to it, and also it's a little bit flimsier than I'd like. This one is pretty dense, and then this one is a more ovaled shape, more pointed shape, and then also it is very thick. This is not ideal for me because I don't like to have a oval shaped brush. I find that this just gets me cleaner lines. This is all going to be up to your preference, obviously, but you ultimately want a very dense, flat brush. You just want it to be as flat as possible and whatever works for your eye shape. So also, I highly recommend getting a small brush as well. This is my favorite precision brush. This is the Morphe E35 brush. It is very small and very thin, and I like this for precision edges. You'll see why I use this and how I use this shortly. And a good dupe for this is a e.l.f. concealer brush. As you can see, this is the e.l.f. brush. It is very dense. They both are. And they're very thin. The e.l.f. brush is just a tiny bit thicker and a little bit bigger, but I mean, this is $1 at your local drugstore, so that's what I used until I found this. So I'm just going to show you guys what I do. Today I am going to use the Revolution Cut Crease Canvas Primer. So what I do is I take some on the back of my hand, don't mind all the swatches, and I just put enough on the back of my hand that I think I need. And then I first start with the Eisling Cosmetics brush, and I just dip into my base or concealer, whatever you're using, and I coat both sides of the brush with that. Okay, and this part is where it gets tricky. So you want to coat both sides, but you don't want to like cake it on there. You just want to have a nice even coat all the way through, because if you use too much, it will get runny, and if you don't use enough, it can you will have to keep going back in and redefining your line. So when I do this, I slightly tilt my head back and I put my mirror, usually it's like this in my face, but usually I tilt my head back a little bit so I can kind of look down into the mirror, like so, and I kind of just stamp out where I want my cut crease to be. I'm not making a super straight line, it's not super even. The reason for coating both sides of your brush is so you can just flip it over instead of keep dipping back in and putting your mirror down. Okay, and I suggest if you're going to use a matte shade, you do this step and you just kind of define where you want it. Grab a makeup wipe and wrap it around your finger like this. And clear off anything underneath that line you just made. The reasoning for doing this is so that way the eyeshadow that you previously laid down will not mix with your concealer and you can get a really white, clean canvas. So as you can see, I did not wipe everything off. I am doing a half cut crease. If you were doing a full cut crease, I suggest you kind of make your line. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's what the little tiny Morphe brush is for, so you can go back in and clean everything up. Some people do the method where they take their concealer and they put it right here and then they look up. They put theirs right there. I can't do that because if I do it, mine gets too high. But if you have hooded eyes, I suggest you try that method. And then when they look up, it'll make a line right about where they should stop their cut crease. Like I said, I don't do that because I don't have hooded eyes and it kind of messes up mine because it takes it way too high up and I don't like mine being that high. So I do it how I like it to look. Ultimately, your eye shape is going to be different than anybody's. Your preferences on brushes and how you do your cut crease is going to vary depending on your eye shape and your preferences. So don't let anybody tell you you are doing this wrong. Okay, once again, I'm just going to coat my brush and we are just going to repeat that same step as before. But make sure you use tapping motions like you're packing it on rather than swipe. Because if you swipe, one, it's going to mess up your lines, and two, it won't give you an even line. If you pat and you have just the right amount of base on, it should give you a pretty good line. And I always like to start right about here where my eye, the corner of my eye meets my eyelid. I'm just going to tell you right now, it'll take you some time to get used to this and find a method that you really like and the way you like to do it. You're not going to just successfully do this the first time you do it. And if you do, kudos, because I tell you what, it's taken me a long time to figure out how to do this properly. And then once you do get it down, you will be able to do different shapes. So I'm just taking what's left on my brush and stamping it still because it helps dry my base and any concealer. I'm stamping it so I have like the fullest coverage I could possibly get. And I'm just stamping it onto my eye and I'm stopping about right here where I stopped that line. Then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to tap the edge of that to kind of blend it out. Okay, so I am going to go in with my smaller precision brush, the Morphe E35, and I'm going to grab just a little bit more of that base and I'm going to coat both sides once again, not too much, not too little. And then this is where you are really going to define your lines. For me personally, this is why I use this brush. I go in and I just kind of use this motion. It's like a packing, stamping, swiping motion, so that way I can kind of control my hand. And I like to rest my hand on the side of my face, because when I do that, I find that I get more control and I get a steadier hand. Or you can take your arm and place it on a sturdy object like a table or your vanity or whatever you use. I suggest you doing this sitting down. It's going to take you a while. Also, if it doesn't take you a long time to cut your crease, either A, you are magnificent crease cutter, or 2, you probably just kind of rushed it. For me, I'm a perfectionist, so my lines have to be like completely perfect. So anyways, what I do now is I take this brush and I start on the very inside, and I just take it and do the same thing. I just work really, really slowly and in small little patting motions, swiping, and I just really define my edge and make it as perfect as I possibly can. This is going to be really hard for me to talk through, so the smaller the brush, the more you're going to have to dip into your base or concealer. Know that. That's why I use the big one first, because I used to just do this with this brush and it took me forever. Every so often you want to stop what you're doing and kind of take a look in the mirror and make sure you're happy with the shape of it, the lines and all that. I'm trying not to look up, and also you don't want to look up because, especially if you're like me and you don't have hooded eyes and you look up, you're going to have concealer clear up here. So a good way to use the most out of your product when you do have too much on is just kind of stamp it underneath your lines when you feel like you have too much before you go in and start just cutting your lines, because if you have too much on, it could really mess up your lines. And I want to show you how to fix your lines if you do mess up and you get concealer too high. So this is where those little brushes come into play, like a eyeliner brush or whatever. You want to use a clean one, and you want to dip it into the eyeshadow shade that is closest, that is right on the edge of that concealer. For me, it is this purple shade right here, and I'm going to keep my hand steady again and just run that shade right across the top part where I messed up. And voila, it's fixed. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to make that line one more time. And then I'm going to pat out the edges of the concealer to make sure everything is even and is up to my standards. Okay, so if you are using a matte shade, you want to go ahead and let this either dry, which will take you forever, or pack on a white matte shade first, because you don't want to add a bunch of matte shadows on top of a wet base. It will make it look really bad and kind of make it hard to blend. So I suggest you kind of let your base dry a little bit, fan it, do what you gotta do. So some people work this way in and some people work this way out. I like to kind of just jump around. So I'm gonna go back in with my purple shade that I used right here, because that is the color I want on the outside of my crease. And I'm gonna take a small brush and I'm first gonna stamp that right on the edge of where I cut my crease and where we stopped mixing it into the shadow that is up here. We're just stamping to make sure we get the full amount of pigment that we could possibly get. Don't worry about this being messy down here, you can clean it up later. So after I've done that, I'm gonna take my brush and I'm not gonna add any more product, and I'm just gonna first start by tapping the edges, and then I'm gonna start like swiping across the edges of where that purple and that concealer meet. And then taking small circular motions, I'm just going to blend it together, staying in that same area. Okay, so if you're going to use a shimmer, which I am, you want to pat You want to like just tap that on as much as you possibly can to get the full payoff on top of where it is still wet or tacky. I'm going to take this e.l.f. concealer brush and I'm going to tap that along the edges of those lines, trying to keep it very close to the lines right on the edge without going over. If you get too much, especially with shimmers, if you get too much random fallout of like little flecks of glitter and stuff, it'll look like your lines are not very clean. Okay, so I am changing the color of my shimmer out here. I want a purple shimmer, but I want it to mix into that gray, and then I also want it to mix into this purple out here. I'm going to take the shade that I want, and I'm going to, you know, do the same thing, add it, but I'm going to try to get it right in between those two shades without going too far into them. And then you want to take the brush that you packed on the matte purple with out here, tapping at first, and then once you have made that line very distinct once again, as you can see, you want to take your brush and just lightly blend it back and forth on the edge of that line, and just blend that until you are satisfied with the way it looks. So now I'm going to take this brush, which is like a fluffy-ish on the end, but a flat brush, if that makes sense. Like, you see how flat it is, but on the ends it's still very fluffy, it's not super dense. You want to take whatever shade you want to be more predominant. Like, for example, I want the silver to withstand the purple over here. I'm going to coat both sides of my brush in that silver, and I'm going to take it on the edge, and I'm going to just slightly blend that back and forth. Turn it on its side. Pat swipe, pat swipe. And that is how you guys cut your crease. Okay guys, so this is it for the final look. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I know that a lot of people ask me how I cut my crease and how I get such fine defined lines, and this is how I personally do it. I hope that it works for you guys. I hope that it was helpful. I really hope that you guys can use these tips and tricks and really become up your skills with cutting your crease. So if you guys found this helpful, please make sure you guys go ahead and like this video. Also, if you could and you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would be much appreciated. And also, if you guys want to see how I blend up my eyeshadow, I know I made a tutorial a long time ago of like how to blend eyeshadow, but I really didn't know what I was doing then, so I feel like I'm in a better place to kind of explain things to you. I have better tools and I have way better skills. So if you guys want to see that, make sure you guys comment down below. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!